So I hit another recording session. And now let's do a few adjustments in our, in terms of organizing better. Well, of course, you don't program with this kind of font. You can, make it more or less all visible at the same time. But at some point, you're just going to run out of space, and it's going to get a little harder to, to scroll up and down your code. Okay, so, perhaps organizing our stuff in multiple files is the answer. Well, for example, I can probably find the location of my project, and if it's on a D drive, CIS 255, is it encapsulation? Yeah, 9/10/2013. So this is where my project is located on my machine, and I have my main CPP. How about I just say new text document and name it point .h for the header file that defines a point class. Just create that one, and also create new second text document and call it a student, right? Because I just happen to use both so far, so rename that. Just as simple as creating two new text files, and I'm just naming them H for to be used as header files. Then I can double-click one and double-click another and open them in my development environment. I can now close Solution Explorer so that I save more space. I can right-click and say move to another vertical tab group, and this one as well. Right? So now I can have a side-by-side view. I like this. I probably cannot program anything significant without having at least two screens available. I already told you my first choice. If someone asked me what would you like to improve in your classroom, I would say I want two screens instantly. Right? We could have a slide over there. We could have our code here, but we'll just try to balance things. And simply, I can take my class point, right? Control X, delete it, and paste it in the point.h file, and save it. Or I can save everything by clicking here, right? So now point resides in its own little file, which makes sense. And the student, similarly, just get the student thing out of here, right? Control X, and paste it right in here, right? So now I have, again, I can save everything. It's very simple, right? Nothing really changed. Is that just main.cpp, which now tries to use those things, really doesn't know what is going on. So what I'm going to do is simply after after a series of includes by using standard library facilities, then I can do my own includes, right? And one would be point .h, and the second one would be student .h, right? So I can include these two. Let me try to build this, making sure that everything works properly. I can even try to rebuild option to make sure that everything is okay. And I suspect there will be one little problem taking place. So rebuild, let's see. It's interesting that I'm saying using std, standard library string, but I'm saying it after including the student. So and the student is trying to use it, so this becomes a problem. Now compiler gets confused by saying I don't know what string is. So possible solution would be to actually, because a string and using, actually I'm not sure about using, but we can try both like this. We can cut them like that, and move them to the top of the student header. Let's see if this will compile without a problem. Save this. So just trying to rearrange things properly, since I need to use string here and I need to use student with the string. Let me try to rebuild this. Okay, so that was not a problem. It compiled. Let me test something, as if I was able to use string without the standard library namespace prefix in front of its name, then can I do this here in main after doing this in the header file? So let's find out. Let's say string name. And then use that name. Doesn't seem to be a problem. I was just wondering if the using declaration may be limited to this particular file, but that's okay. So it doesn't. So I can continue using string, and my typical preference is to do this all the time, but I know how this could be harder to read on screen when we do our our presentations and samples, so we'll just stick with this format. Okay, so this all seems to work okay. So this is an important part, the fact that we can now think about defining our classes in header files and then bringing those header files to the implementation files, which are our CPP files, as needed, right? So perhaps if main did not have to use point, then it should not include point.h. But since it does in our demo, well, we just include that header. The only thing, and I hope we can include this in this segment and then take a short break, but of course you should recall that it's very important not to forget to include the header guards in our classes. The reason is this. This could happen, right? This just can happen because directly or indirectly includes could be happening, right? So right now I'm not expecting this to give us trouble, but in some cases it might. Let's just see if this will compile. Because the standard says that an exact declaration of a class may occur more than once. But if I say rebuild again, let's see. No, that just that didn't go well, and I'm happy about it because I want this to fail. So what it says here, class type redefinition, and it's just like, okay, suddenly you have a redefinition. Well, it happens on this second include. As soon as I attempt the second include, it should have no effect. You know, it should be okay to attempt to include files in any combination, and even in this abusive manner like I did, because the headers themselves should be responsible to be safe to be included multiple times. To fix this problem, what we're going to do is that we're going to add the header guards. So typically point.h I spell out like this, point.h included, and well, I guess we can keep it simple like that, and we say the precompiler directive is if not defined this thing, then we can say define it, right? Define it. We can define it, and finally we can say and if towards the end of our file. And this is called a header guard, and my preference is also to Control-C and Control-V this thing towards the end, because and if does not require it. This directive checks if the symbol, if the precompile symbol is already, it does already exist in its symbol table. If it doesn't exist, then we fall right here. We say define it and put it in the symbol table. You actually can define it as 0 or as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But most compilers will allow to just define it by default, and I think most will also define it as 0 in the symbol table, so like literal 0. So this time, if I did this, adding my header guards, so now I should be okay. And the second time I try to include this if and def will find out that this already exists because it was previously defined, and will simply skip everything to this point to end if. And that's precisely what we want. We want to skip the content of the entire header file in case if the header guard's already, doing its work. Similarly, and if you're like me, I'd like to copy and paste a lot, so student.h should have its own thing, but the worst mistake that you can make is that if you copy and paste your header guards, and forget that it's your responsibility to keep this symbol unique. So this should actually be changed to student.h included, right? And change it consistently. This is what copy and paste of header guard supposed to come with, that you don't forget to rename it. Otherwise, it's going to be a nasty little thing that you're using the wrong name, because each header guard symbol has to be unique for your header file. So if it's not unique, it's not good. So keep those names, unique to each file. So hopefully I can now rebuild. Again, I'm using rebuild anytime I did significant changes in my project. Maybe it's an overkill, but our program is very small and it compiles fine. So I tested this, so I can now remove this unnecessary craziness with includes and just keeps everything organized like that.